Hi everybody, I'm Nick Atkin, Chief Exec at Yorkshire Housing, and you're listening to Raising the Roof podcast, the show that brings business leaders and industry experts together to unpick the hot topics in housing and beyond. So welcome back. This is episode 1 of season 2. So thanks to everybody who subscribed. You've managed to make the case for us to have another season, and we've got lots and lots of really good shows planned in that, the details of which we'll share with you very shortly. But what about today? Well, today we're talking about the future of work. And with me today is Beckie Hart and Jenny Hill. Beckie is the Regional Director for CBI Yorkshire and Humber, and Jenny is the founder, president, CEO, MD, whatever else, of Ingo Interiors. Yes, she's a sole trader, so she does all the jobs in one. And Jenny specialises in creating flexible workspaces and has been the genius and inspiration behind Yorkshire Housing's new hub here at the place, which is where we're recording from today. So today we're going to be talking about everything ranging from that email from Elon Musk to the 4-day week working trial that's going on around the world at the moment, and everything else in between. So let's get cracking. You've probably already seen the email from Elon Musk that's been doing the rounds. He's basically told his employees that they've got to be in the office for a minimum of 40 hours per week, and if they don't show up, he's assuming that they've resigned. Quite how that works in good HR practice terms, I'm beyond me, but nevertheless, that's what he's saying. And he's also interestingly suggesting that companies that don't have employees on site never deliver great new products or innovate. So Beckie, we'll start with you. What do you think of that message, and does it resonate with what other businesses are telling you across Yorkshire and Humber?
Well, I think we probably all agree that Elon Musk comes out with some amazing statements. That is definitely one of them. He has a lot of interesting things to say, and he's done all sorts of interesting things. However, I think when you actually look at the tweet, it's quite very nuanced, all the replies to it, and I would definitely say that a one-size-fits-all method just doesn't work. We actually brought out a guide to hybrid working in March 2021. We actually explained in that guide what hybrid working was, and really it was something that many businesses just hadn't even thought of. And what was really interesting was 76% of those respondents said they would actually consider it, and 96% of staff said they would really welcome it. Mm. Fast forward 15 months since we did that, first figure's gone up to 90-odd%, and actually we've got nearly every business I speak to is already embracing hybrid working in some way or another, and also are getting some really, really good results out of it. And I think we've also got to remember there's a whole cohort of employees coming into business who don't know anything different, and actually they don't feel comfortable with 5 days in an office. Because why would they? They've never known anything different. So I think we're seeing lots of exciting things. I think a one size does not fit all, and I think it's up for everybody business to work out what's right for them. And I think one of the challenges is just making sure you get the balance right between those people who don't have the option of doing hybrid working and obviously those people who do.
Yeah, and I have to say, Beckie, the guide that the CBI produced is probably one of the best documents I've seen on hybrid working. We shared it with our board and with our senior managers, so it certainly did the rounds here at Yorkshire Housing. So what we'll do is we'll include a link on the podcast where people get their versions from. So we'll definitely make sure that that's promoted. But just picking up on that, because certainly just before we went live, you were telling me about the fact that and it was a light bulb moment for me, really, when you were sort of saying that people are now coming into the workplace who've never ever worked in an office before. Yeah. And I was like, blimey, there's people who have come into the workplace the last 2.5 years, completely alien concept, So just sort of unpack a little bit more what skills you think that we need as managers, in sort of, you and I in senior roles in our businesses, but also employees. What are the skills that are needed to survive almost in that hybrid landscape?
I think from a manager's perspective, it's really thinking about health and well-being, bearing in mind that for the first time, you might be managing people who are not sitting within 5 metres of you. And so a lot of things like trust come into that, outcomes versus input. Just because people out there, it doesn't mean they're not generating output, they're generating sort of outcomes. And then how are you actually going to communicate with them? You can't just lean over the desk because only half of those people will actually hear you. How do you actually sort of improve your communication style? How do you use technology? You have to learn how to use some of the technologies to do that. And I think then the whole how you go about doing the onboarding process and also then performance management as well. And then so flipping it on the side of the employee, coming into a business and not actually seeing colleagues, peers, people in other departments face to face is quite difficult. So you might get absolutely stuck on something and try and solve it, but you might spend ages solving it because otherwise you could have just quickly asked somebody, how do I access this, for example. So I think one of the things that we've been really conscious of, and so many businesses around us, is how you get the onboarding bit right. And is that the bit that you really make sure you do in person? We're just starting a series of all-in days, so we can get some of those sort of basics sort of right at the start. And then the more transactional side of work, you can do off-site. And I think that's it's been really interesting that just listening to that cohort of people who it also came as a bit of a shock to me. I've never known anything different.
Yeah. It sounds like from your world, your perspective, the world has probably shifted massively from where it was pre-COVID. Yeah. Is that fair to say?
Most employers are saying they will never go back to the way it was. There are a few employers who have brought everybody back into the business, but the number one question that recruiters are getting asked is, what are the flexible or hybrid working arrangements? And it's very difficult to place candidates in businesses who are not offering any flexible or hybrid working arrangements at all.
So people, the listeners have heard it here first. If you're not offering hybrid or flexible working, you're going to really struggle.
Absolutely. It's a struggle.
Well, we've got 1.3 million vacancies at the moment.
And I mean, and that's right. Right here in Yorkshire, there's an incredibly tight labour market, and employers are really having to look at other ways that they can make that sort of work-life balance more attractive, because it's not an option just to keep increasing salaries all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And somebody from Yorkshire, money's close to my heart, so keep increasing salaries all the time. Not always a great option, that one. So I just want to pick up Beckie really, and if I could come across to you, Jenny, on this one. I'm interested on employees' well-being and ways that work can affect that, and how companies can support colleagues across all the different places that there might be, whether that's at home, whether that's in a hub like this or out on the road. Jenny, just because you get into some businesses, what types of things have you seen that have worked well to support employees' well-being?
I think the hub is the correct approach at the moment, in my opinion. It's one of the best ways that people can support their colleagues. I think to have a hub, I ban the word office, so it literally is a hub that people can come to. We've gone through the pandemic believing that there's a choice, working from home or working in an office, and the hybrid approach, I think, it can feel a bit like that as well. You've got two options, whereas I don't think it should be like that. I think the Yorkshire housing approach of a hub, home and roam is the way to go, because people need all sorts of different support, and it's not necessarily in an office. I think this sort of a friendly environment to support your staff helps with mental and physical well-being. I think if your company is not providing a space for you that helps with your everyday life and fitting work in with everyday life, then they're missing a trick. You can work anywhere, but during the pandemic people weren't allowed to, so I think people felt like if I work from home, there was a lot of lonely people that weren't talking to colleagues and things. When I've worked from home, that means to me going to cafes, you know, and mingling with people there, or even just having the noise around me instead of feeling like I'm secluded. But I've also gone and worked with people that are from completely different industries, and we've sat next to each other and worked and then had lunch together. And it's kind of, you know, I think people at the moment are still finding it difficult to find their feet and think, I can work anywhere, but the technology is there. And just going back a little bit to what you said before, about, I think a lot of it comes down to power, and I think Elon Musk isn't used to not having power, and I think the problem allegedly, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't defamatory. I have never met the man, but we, you know, as managers, like you were saying before, it is hard thinking I've got to give up control of that person, but you should never be in charge of a person. You're in charge of the work and managing the team and making sure that they're happy and healthy and can carry on and do their job. And I think if they've got somewhere to go that feels more like a cafe environment, that you can just come and meet people, and it's not a case of, oh, if you're there then you're skiving, if you're on a soft seat then you're skiving. It's like you can literally decide, oh, I've got this to do today, I'm going to go and sit there, instead of being by a desk. I think with this hub in particular, we've got no desks, but there are places you can go with supported chairs and tables at a certain height and different heights for different people. And I think physical well-being, with that in mind, it's good to have that variation and people can choose. And actually, I think the biggest thing is just getting it out of our psyche that the workplace is somewhere where you are told where to sit and what to do. And it shouldn't be like that. We've all been into an office where if you're a visitor, you walk down the middle of the desk and everybody looks at you. And it's like...
Or even worse, on your first day.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, with this, I think open plan offices, people in the past have done like high back booths next to desks, and you do feel intimidated when you walk in, because it's just this row of seats and not everybody's good at networking or wants to go plunging into a room full of people. And on your first day you want to feel safe and secure and there's somebody welcoming you. So that's what I think all businesses should be doing.
And you're feeling safe and secure because, certainly for listeners who perhaps may be able to see a few video clips of the podcast, but you've got one of our sheep next to you today.
I do.
Just to keep you,
we're not quite sure on its name yet.
Yeah, we may even have that.
It's not Dolly then.
No, it's
definitely not Dolly. We may even have a name the sheep competition for the
really good. I think somebody's already said Barbara.
Oh, very good, very good. Although my co-producer doesn't want me to steal the thunder on that, so I'm going to move on quickly. So let's move on to what's happening across the wider world around the trial of 4-day weeks, and certainly I've seen a recent study that shows that there's been a 90% increase in roles advertised in a 4-day week. So what do you reckon, Beckie? Do you think it's going to catch on? What businesses are telling you?
So, I think at the moment in the UK, there is a trial. There are 3,300 employees at 70 different businesses trialling a 4-day week. And it's quite early doors yet, so I think all the other businesses that are considering it are sort of looking and are waiting in anticipation to find out what worked and what didn't. And I was chatting to one company that is trialling it at the moment. Now, they are a recruitment company, so they wanted to trial something that their clients will probably want to be inquiring about, which I thought was probably a good idea to do. And one of the things is that the initial sort of, oh my goodness me, how are we going to squash essentially 5 days work into 4 days? And they did an absolute forensic look at their internal meeting calendars and took out what really wasn't necessary. Yeah. And guess what? They saved 5 hours just in internal meetings. And I think we could probably all learn a little bit from that. But also, you know, I've been talking to retailers who are doing it as well. And what it's given them is there is a requirement to work some Saturdays. So some of the office-based staff will be required to work a Saturday. But what that's actually giving them is a 6-week head office cover over what essentially is nearly a 24-hour 37 operation. Right. So you do get Friday or the Monday off, but you are required to work a Saturday on only, not every Saturday obviously, but certain Saturdays during the year.
How do they work that out? That's one of my concerns with the 4-day week. Because somebody decides which 4 days you're doing, which again isn't really.
Well,
so how do they cope with?
so-
if you've got a family, you don't want to do the weekends, but does that mean that single people or people without children have less right to free time at a weekend? You know, it's just like it is with shift work when you're working as a waitress or something like that. It's like, you know, in a way it becomes shift patterns and somebody working out a rota. So surely it should be up to the individual to decide what days they do.
I think that they both companies had long conversations with who wanted to do what. There is always going to have to be compromise, though, and I think that you will sometimes draw the short straw, and hopefully, if the balance works out, then you will more or less get what you want. I think interesting, obviously, in Belgium, it's already written into law that the four-day week exists, and they are seeing some really good results. So, 70% of the people who are doing it have actually reported sort of uptick in productivity. But I think what's more significant is the drop in absenteeism rates.
Yes.
So that's like about 55%. That's big, because obviously we know that absenteeism costs businesses a lot of money. But again, it's not a one size fits all, and I think that from a leadership perspective, it's one of another tool in the armoury. It's like hybrid working, it's like flexible working. It's just you've got to measure up what will work for the business ultimately, and we haven't started trialing yet, but I'm sure I'll be suggesting it. But there has got to be an understanding, I think, of what's going to work, and for some businesses it really is quite a challenge. I'm quite looking forward to seeing what the results are going to be of the UK trial, but it's certainly sort of been embraced in other countries already.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because when you look into the origins of the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, it was Henry Ford, wasn't it, in 1926 to improve the efficiency of producing the Ford Model T at the time. And you sort of think, well, the vast majority of businesses, I know a significant chunk are involved in manufacturing, but many service industries, and that's no longer relevant.
Yeah.
And indeed, as a customer and a recipient of services from a whole range of different providers, the three of us probably all expect services to be available outside of very traditional Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type environment. And yet, we don't actually always work that way ourselves in terms of that flexibility. So, and I think, there's also the point that in terms of going back to the point we made back about being 1.3 million vacancies, not only how do you recruit really good people, but how do you retain really good people? And there is a need, I think, for us to think about, well, actually, for some colleagues, Monday to Friday doesn't work for them because of their personal circumstances, whatever that might be. There's a whole range of different scenarios that you can put into that. And then I think the final thing, and certainly it's a journey Yorkshire Housing are going down. Most organisations are very, very parental. They're very prescriptive about when colleagues should do things and when they shouldn't. And actually, we're all grown-up adults and we can make those decisions. But we almost get hardwired into thinking we have to, be told what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And actually, we don't do that in our personal lives.
And I think that's interesting because in the pandemic, we were very much told what to do, where to go. And actually, one of the sort of challenges from government to business is you need to regain responsibility now. And because, we need to draw back on telling you what to do and when to do things, and we need you to sort of pick up that leadership baton.
Freedom is a powerful motivator, I think, when recruiting and retaining staff, and I think it creates loyalty if it's give and take and it's not just seen as dictatorship, and I do find it difficult with companies that haven't maybe got that customer service element. I mean, we do, your companies do, but there are companies that don't, and I don't see the point in saying to somebody, well, you need to be in on these days and 3 days a week, because if you think that I can get that work done in that amount of time, isn't that up to you? As long as you're fulfilling the job description and getting it done, then I've been working for the last 5 years, 4 days a week, and still managing a successful business. And I think you do, it's a bit like with storage, people fill it. If it's there.
It's like my loft, that, Jenny.
But if you've got the time, you fill it. And it's amazing when you take that day out and you think, I'm actually still managing to do it. How? And I don't know. I think it is a powerful motivator to have that freedom where you decide.
Yeah.
And if people aren't doing what you want them to do, you'll know. You will find out. You don't need to be sat, like you said, looking at somebody's screen and seeing if they're by their desk to know.
Yeah. Okay, so we better push on because we need to get to probably the last question, which is around, before we get to one of my favourites, which is our quick fire round. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But I absolutely love what we've done here at Yorkshire Housing's new hub called The Place. What I love about it is that it really reflects us as a business, but also as a place to work. It's got our character, and I think that's quite different. Yeah, we've got sheep as well, which,
and a tree.
you know, and trees.
A real tree.
So I suppose what I'm interested in this, and I think some of our listeners will be as well, Jenny, is that just I suppose not without sharing some of your sort of intellectual secrets, but actually, how do you take the culture of the business? Because we sat down and you just had, you know, a couple of hours conversation with me around where we were and where we wanted to be, and then you came up with the design and concept here. So just, you know, why is that understanding that culture so important? And then, without again giving away your trade secrets, how do you sort of build that into the design? It's my background.
I think I don't know if I should admit to this, but I don't have a degree in interior design. But I do.
We'll edit that out, don't worry.
I have a degree in set design, and I think that's where it comes from. Is that my background in television is I used to be get given a brief of a character, and I have to design it to fit that character. And so I see businesses, I'm not taking you as an individual, I'm taking what you tell me as the brief as a character. So like this, Yorkshire Housing is a character to me, and I translate it in my head and make it into, you know, well, this is what I need to do, because you can't, as a designer, you can put your own stamp on something, but you can't make it about you. It's got to be about the company you're doing it for. And every company has challenges, and it's about listening to that. A lot of things are the same from company to company, but you can't just do a one-size-fits-all, like you said before. And I think that's some of the pitfalls that maybe other companies, they think of things and go, oh, well, that works, but it might not be right for you. Obviously, I've been given a little bit more free rein here, but I think hopefully it's not a gimmick. A lot of people say about, you know, I want a Google office, and you're like, no, you really don't. You know, it won't work for you. You're not a tech company. You're not, you know, but the odd tree and sheep isn't going to do any harm. But I think on paper, people saw this and thought, oh, this is going to be different. But when you're in here, I feel like it's got a really warm feel to it, and it doesn't feel gimmicky. It feels like it was meant to be like this. So I think without a clear goal in my head, I wouldn't get anywhere, but I always start with listening to what the company wants. And a load of desks next to high back booths is never going to help anyone. You've really got to integrate the design and make sure that every little thing has been thought about, and not just, oh, we're going to put this here and that there. It's not just space planning, it's a concept, who is the company, what's their character.
I love how you brought that sort of your previous life in TV set design into and picking up the culture of a business as the character in whether that be a soap or whatever else.
And I see it in terms of little bits as well, like wide shots, mid shots, and close ups. So it's to think about the whole thing, and then when you look close up, you don't want dead spaces, a white wall behind people. It won't be inspiring to people. And then people tend to put bold colours on columns and think that's it, we've brightened it up. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work. We're not children.
So if anybody listens just about to pick up a paint pen and go, stop, do not put that roller on that colour.
About 15 years ago, I used to do that. But, you know, I do like painting columns black, but...
So put that paint pot down, pick up the phone and call Jenny. That's what you need to do. Beckie, just I know we briefly sort of walked you through, and we're still putting the finishing touches to it. Well, just any initial thoughts on what you've seen here and your reflections on it?
Well, Jenny and I loved the felt lampshades, and it's nice to learn about, you know, why you chose felt, because it has that acoustic effect. I thought they were great. I think what's really nice is during the pandemic, we really learned to appreciate nature and the outdoors, and the fact that you come in, there's running water the minute you walk through the door. There's foliage. The sheep. It is that reminder of something that probably sustained a lot of people during what was a really, really tough time, and I think that's just great. I do like the fact that people, if you feel comfortable at work, you will be more productive. And there are plenty of spaces and areas where you can feel comfortable, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. So, and also, it is a net zero building, and we, to actually put that in, I would be putting that everywhere, because lots and lots of businesses are really going to have to embrace how they decarbonise, and their buildings will be a really key.
Why not use this as a catalyst to do that? I don't understand why people are still debating it. It's like we need to make those changes now.
Yes, Well, you can do guided tours and make sure that's one of the first things that people. But it is really important, because decarbonising our buildings is going to be tough.
Absolutely. You look at what the UK emissions, about 30% coming from domestic buildings and some sort of office space as well. So there's a significant inroads to be made there. And the other thing, obviously close to my heart, is many of the materials and fixtures and fittings we source locally in Yorkshire as well. So it's trying to keep the Yorkshire brand local,
for example.
Let's go to quickfire question. So we're talking about employers. If you could work for any company at all, and you can't have your current employer or Yorkshire Housing, who would you choose and why? I'm going to come to you first, Beckie, because you've got a big grin on your face. Like you really don't want to be answering this one.
So without wanting to put myself in any sticky situation, actually, I am so privileged, in fact, that I get to visit all sorts of different businesses all day, every day. So I'd actually like to do a week in each.
Oh.
And go right through, so whether it's an airlines business, whether it's a retailer, whether it's a manufacturer, housing association, whatever, it has opened my eyes to what employment is available in Yorkshire and beyond. But that
is
I'd like to do a week in
response.
And try and keep a job at the same time.
You get your job perfectly. That's a perfect response. Jenny, how about you?
Mine was going to be a politician's answer as well, really, and say that was the thing I asked myself 10 years ago, really, why, who would you want to work for? And I chose me. And so I set up my own company. And but if I had to choose, I think I just want to make a difference. It sounds so cheesy, but I really want any company that has got a lot of staff or colleagues to just think about it and think about well-being and just, use my knowledge, use my experience really to change lives for the better. It sounds a bit sort of like, save the world, but it's very important at the moment that our mental health and physical health is looked after. I really think that Mr. Rees-Mogg and Mr. Elon Musk should give me a ring, really.
I'm sure they'll be listening to this podcast as regular listeners, and they'll be picking up the phone or tweeting you direct. You are right. You are right, Jenny. I mean, I always say you spend your best waking hours at work, so you've got to enjoy it. And the workspace has such a big impact on people's well-being. So I think that's a great way to bring this episode to a close, because that's all we've got time for today. So a massive Yorkshire thank you to my guest Beckie, and also to Jenny. If you do want to join in the conversation online, please do use the hashtag Raising the Roof. We'll be back with another episode next month where we'll be discussing all things reputation and stigma. So if you want to be the first to tune in, then please hit the subscribe button now. But that's it, it's a wrap. We're closing the door on this episode. So I've been your host, Atkin, and you've been listening to Raising the Roof. Until next time, see you soon.